I first wanted to thank you very much for coming out on this wild night. I'm really in awe of you and your civic dedication. I'm serious. This is really, really encouraging to us. We think you're in for an interesting evening, and we're really interested in what you have to say. I'm going to turn it over to David. We may have some other people arrive, and we'll just incorporate them in as we go. Again, thank you very much. David?
Thank you, Carol. My name is David Pechorsky. I'm the planning director for the town of Lexington. I share the sentiments as Carol does, given the weather and the fact that the Sox are in the World Series. I appreciate it. And I have to turn the lights on, so I'll be right back. We appreciate you coming and participating tonight. Before I introduce our facilitator this evening, I just want to go over and say a few words about the comp plan in general, some of the things we've done to date, and some of the things we're looking to do moving forward. As probably many of you know, the effort to update the plan is an important one because it involves developing a long-term vision for the community that will help guide future decision-making as it pertains to Lexington's physical environment. And the elected body that's responsible for overseeing the development of that document and the eventual adoption of it is the planning board. One of the first things that we did after town meeting approved funding to update the plan was to identify individuals who would participate in the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. The CPAC, which was appointed by the planning board, is a group of individuals with diverse backgrounds in an effort to represent as broad a spectrum of the community as possible. Their charge is to help work with the planning board and the staff to develop and draft the plan, as well as engage community stakeholders and the general public at events such as this. I'd just like to acknowledge co-chair Sarah Felton and Stacy, I don't want to mess up the name, Stacy Boutel, who are here this evening and will be participating. Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge any town meeting members who might be here tonight as well. Thank you.
George.
Thank you, Mr. Burnell. So all the individuals I've identified tonight, as well as other town officials and staff, know that in order for this effort to be a successful one, we need to have as much public input as we can. So the people who are here tonight are not only here to provide their thoughts and perspectives, they're also here to listen to what you have to say. And in addition to tonight's event, and the conversations we're hoping to have this evening, as well as the event that took place earlier in September and the similar event that's scheduled for November, staff have been working with the CPAC and the planning board on a number of initiatives to, in essence, get the word out about this effort. Earlier this year, you may have attended some educational panels that we had that focused on transportation, economic development, and housing issues. The intent of those events was to give audience members an opportunity to learn about the challenges and trends that other communities in the region as a whole are facing. We also had a public meeting earlier in June at Cary Hall where trends and existing conditions applicable to Lexington were presented to the public, and attendees had an opportunity to share their thoughts about the town's strengths, its weaknesses, its opportunities, and its threats. Obviously, the more people that we're able to notify about this update, the more likely we are to get greater input. And to that end, we've established a web page whose link is up on the screen here. Visitors to the site can view past videos and presentations from meetings. They can learn more about the overall process, and they can also sign up to be notified about future events as they occur. In addition, we have an online survey that's currently there that people can take. It's a general survey at this time, but we are developing additional surveys that will cover topics such as cultural and natural resources, transportation, housing, and economic development. We're also working with our consultant on scheduling a number of stakeholder interviews with town committees, organizations, as well as staff, developers, and landowners. In addition, we've reached out to a number of local civic and cultural and religious institutions to notify them about the effort, encourage them to get involved, and to notify their respective members about the effort and how they should provide their feedback and input. We've also attended several town events. We've been at the farmers market. We went to the recent 25th anniversary bikeway celebration. We've had staff at a lot of the back to school events. Susan Barrett's here, is also a resident, and she helped us to really get the word out, notify people that we're doing this, and give them opportunities where they can attend meetings and provide feedback. The intent of tonight's meeting is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts and perspectives on where you see Lexington today and where you would like to see it moving forward. And it's also an opportunity for you to hear from the people that are sitting around you what their thoughts are about today and in the future. With that, I'll introduce Jeff Dietrich, who's with Howard Stein Hudson. They've been hired by the town to help coordinate the outreach effort, as well as work with the CPAC and the planning board on updating the actual plan. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed tonight's discussion.
Thank you. So as you may have noticed from the setup on the tables, we're aiming for this to be not quite a typical public meeting tonight. We're not going to talk at you all night and then have questions and answers and then send everybody home. This is really about having everybody talk to each other at the tables. To that end, we're going to keep everyone at these small tables and facilitate small group conversations in a number of phases. The templates that are in front of you will sort of guide you through those conversations and help you write them down so we know what you all talked about at the end of it. Before we get too far into that though, this is a little bit fitting, we're in elementary school. I want to do some conversation guidelines. Be curious, be courteous. Don't just be out to speak your own opinion, but listen to what other people are saying. Inquire, don't just advocate for your own position, but ask what other people want to say and what their positions are. Share the air. This is probably the key one, and I've put the mic close enough to my face now. This is really meant to hammer home the point that we are all here to talk to each other, not just to orate to everyone else in the room. So if you are somebody who speaks really easily and naturally, and that is something that you do at all of these meetings that you come to, I would hope that to ask you all to just take a few seconds at the beginning of every round and let somebody else talk first. Step back for 10 seconds or so. Just literally count to 10 in your head before you start talking. And if you're not, if you're the kind of person who listens to other people by instinct, if you are comfortable doing it, and I hope you will be in this environment, I ask you to lean into the conversation. Take those 10 seconds and talk first. We are going to sort of have times going for each round, 15 minutes per conversation for most of them. We will enforce those, for lack of a better word. We'll tell you when the conversation time is ending and when it's time to move to the next one. So just observe those, don't be respectful of everybody else's time as well. And then finally, at the end of this, we're gonna ask you all to do a little bit of synthesis, like to reflect back on what you said, what you heard, what everybody talked about. So throughout it, keep an ear out for things that you're hearing over and over, themes that are emerging, patterns that are emerging in the conversation as you have them. And then finally, like I said, not a typical public meeting. Draw, doodle, have fun. The pipe cleaners are just there for you to tinker with if you want to tinker. I find it really helpful to just like have something to do with my hands. Last time we had people make little glasses and flowers, so if you want to make a sculpture, make a sculpture. The borders of the paper, draw on them, doodle them, whatever you want to do. Just like engage yourself in the conversation, engage yourself with your neighbors, and don't forget to have a little bit of fun. So this is the table template that I mentioned. It's in 4 columns. The first round, we're going to be talking about some value statements and introductions, and then going into what people want and need from the town, what sort of concerns and tensions you think might exist, and then finally, what priorities come out of that. What is the synthesis, right? Like, what do you think needs to happen based on the conversation that you've had? So we're going to start with round 1, value statements. Now, I hope that, and it's not really necessary right now, but I hope that some of you sat down at the table where you don't know everybody at the table. So we're going to start off with a round of introductions when we start this. So this is the first part, and we want to make sure that you actually spend a minute on this. Introduce yourselves, tell each other why you're here, and why specifically it's important that you came out Obviously, it's game one of the Red Sox. The weather is really, really crappy. Like, this is clearly important to all of you, so I want you to take some time to reflect and think about why that is and why you came out. Once you do that, we're going to talk about what you value about town. We want to build sort of a consensus about what is incredible and what is valuable about this place that we all call home. And that could be both tangible or intangible, right? Like if you really like a swimming pool, that can be your favorite thing about town. If you really like your neighbors, that can be your favorite thing about town. It doesn't have to be all just a tangible or intangible thing. So,
You have a single individual.
great, yeah, we'll take care of it. So, the,
We have some here. No, actually. It's okay. Sorry.
no, it's fine.
We have 5.
Great. So if we can pull, if there are any tables with 5 or more people, pull up to a couple right here. We just want to make sure that nobody is left alone in the room. So one of the things you'll notice, these, like I said, these templates are all meant to be written on. I'm going to ask one person at each table to volunteer to be that scribe for each round. And then after this conversation is done, after this first round is done, we're going to get you all up, and most of the people in the room are going to rotate to another table. So we're going to have one person stay from each table, and then everybody else will make their way to another, split up. So if you want to have as many conversations with as many different people as possible. So that's the plan. This first round is 15 minutes. So if everybody has a scribe, yes?
What time do you plan to have?
It's just under 2 hours total. I mean, for the total time. So it's 4 15-minute rounds, plus in between I want to have a little bit of just time to check in with everybody. I would say it's 7:25 now, so 8:45-ish. And if we want to be respectful, like I said, of everyone's time. So if we need to sort of trim things down, we can do that as we go. So the last thing, thank you, David. Like I mentioned, we're going to do these individual sort of report backs in between each round. Those are going to be written down and captured by Melissa right over here in the corner. She's going to create sort of a record of the conversation as well as what you all write down on your tables. So you can write very, very detailed notes on these, if you want to just sort of dive in. And then we're going to grab some of the top level stuff out and put it on that one so we have one common record as well as everyone's individual records. I know this is sort of an unusual way to have a meeting, so does anybody have any questions? Does it make sense to everyone? You all just excited to get talking and I should be quiet? Okay, so 15 minutes, and if you guys are having trouble getting from one conversation to the other, the scribe can sort of step up and say we need to move on to the next question. So that's it for me for now. See you all in 15 minutes. Thank you. So believe it or not, it's been 15 minutes already. All right. Thank you all. I'm going to interrupt at this moment. So in between each stage here, we're going to have a brief sort of follow back and ask everybody to share a couple highlights of what they heard in this conversation, if there's anything that you want to share at this stage. So I hope everyone had a productive conversation, that you got to both questions. I know that 15 minutes can sort of sneak away pretty quickly. But so
something you'd like to share, just raise your hand, we'll walk over.
Anyone, anything. You don't have to share your names. It doesn't have to be the interesting question. If you want to ask, why am I here tonight? That's awesome. If you want to share anything that is valuable to you about Lexington, that's great too. Any brave first volunteers? I promise it's not that hard.
Yeah. How do we get this?
How do we get people to spend time?
So just a couple of highlights, if I can. Gary did a great job here writing stuff down, but we felt that there was a lot of cultural diversity in the town, but a tremendous lack of economic diversity. We also felt that there's a lot of community in the town, especially with the religious diversity, a lot of churches and so on, but a lack of a vibrant center. You know, I've been to other towns where there's just a load of people in the downtown at night. Lexington just clears out. Can't do anything here after 9 o'clock, or nobody stays after 9 o'clock. The transportation, if anybody commutes to Boston, it's hell. It's getting harder and harder. Bicycle safety, it's good to have bike lanes and have marks on the road, but towns are building separate lanes. You know, to share the road with traffic is challenging. We feel that there was one thing connected to the town center is the vibrancy, not feeling the vibrancy in the town center that we would like to feel. And things clear out, people clear out, it's full of banks and real estate offices. There are less places to meet. You know, if you like Starbucks, it's great, but this just doesn't feel like a community feel.
So we're going to have, just to say if I might, I just want to be respectful again of people's time, and I want to keep these in-between sessions pretty short to about 5 minutes or so. So we will have the session that concerns intentions session. I think will be a great point to return back to this conversation. I will give the time, thank you. But is there anyone else who had a value statement that I started walking away?
I feel like much of what just came up, we had the opposite kind of feel. We felt like we had a welcoming downtown center. We have great schools, very social conscious. The library is such a driving force here in the town, as are the open spaces that we have, the walkability, conservation land, the bikeway, shared use trails we have across Lexington. We also have transportation within the town for people who don't necessarily have vehicles but who want to get around. Whereas you might complain about trying to get into Boston, there are alternative ways of getting around the town and getting down into Alewife. We were talking about how easy it is. What we like about Lexington is that it's easy to get down into the city and out into the country and up to the beaches, and it's really well placed. Also, we like the community involvement. We feel like the town is open to activity, citizens get involved. It has a small town feel. We have a lot of diversity. I think I said that, the social consciousness, we have a town that's really interested in helping other people. We have a town where we have very strong interfaith connections. When there's something that's going on, all the temples and churches seem to gather together and unite everyone when things feel kind of down, and it's such a wonderful source of inspiration. This is a destination. You see buses pulling up to the town green, and the history draws people in. So, we feel like there's a lot of great positive things going on here.
One more quick one, and then we'll move on to the next round here.
Our table had many of the same attributes, but I wanted to just mention that at our table, we've been living in Lexington, all of us, for 30 or 40 years, but made the comment in terms of why we're here, that we're very happy to be part of this input process, because typically we've tended to be more involved ourselves in our church community or the garden club or specific sort of smaller groups, and not so much with the town overall, so we're very happy to have the chance.
Thank you all. Okay, so I've said at the beginning that we're going to ask people to move around. This is the first move around point. So if one person from each table can stay as our host during the next round, I'm going to ask all those people to represent what that table talked about in the previous conversation. So if you stay as a host, you're reflecting back what was just said. So we're going to give everyone a couple minutes to move around.
Nice to meet you.
That was very quick. Thank you all.
Yep, that'd be great.
We threw this over here for later on. They thought that.
All right, so welcome to round two. I want to take a moment first just to after the first round, quickly looking at what everyone did on their templates. I really appreciate how much you all were writing, and from what we shared, there's dense information there that's incredibly valuable to us later on, sort of coming out of this meeting, as we're going to read through all of these and understand what everyone is saying. So thank you. Keep taking great notes. So round two, after we've changed tables, there we go. After these value statements, we want to ask these questions about what people want from the town and what people need from the town. So there are 3 questions here. Again, we're going to give you 15 minutes to talk about them, so make sure to enforce yourself and get to all 3 of them. To start with, we know that these comprehensive plans sort of happen in moments of change and evolution, and Lexington as a town is definitely going through periods of change and evolution. So we want to get a sense of what changes you all see going on in town that are encouraging to you specifically, and why those are encouraging to you. What are the things that we should sort of double down on? Second, what's missing from Lexington in your view? So is there stuff changes that are going on that that aren't going on that you'd like to encourage, things that aren't here that you'd like to be here? And then third, since we're talking about the communal effort here, we put this question in to make sure that we ask ourselves what other people in town are experiencing too. So just take a moment to think about what needs might be unmet by other people than you in the town, and other people that are at this table and in this room tonight, because there are 40,000 people that we're writing this plan for, and it's not just the 36 people in the room. So just take a moment to think about that too. Again, we're going to need somebody to scribe for each table, so if you can get a volunteer to continue that very good work. I'll give a sort of warning when there are a couple minutes left, and then we did something last time that I'm going to try to do again, where at the end of the round, I'm just going to put my hand up in the air so I don't just start shouting at you guys at the mic and interrupt the conversation. If you see somebody else with their hand in the air towards the end of the round, just put yours up as well, and we'll get sort of a gentle quiet at the end. So, if there are no questions, wants and needs, 15 minutes.
When you say what's missing from my vision, meaning to pause and think further about, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not.
I can self-reflect about what's missing.
Yeah, it's sort of, if you want to take the question as a what's missing from my personal vision, feel free. If it's sort of, I think we intended more as a what is missing in my view. So what in my view is missing from Lexington, but if there's a moment for self-reflection too, feel free to take it. It's a valuable thing. All right. Thank you all. See, it's like a remarkably effective tool, huh? Just like raising your hands, everybody gets quiet very quickly. It's been another 15 minutes. Thank you all for continuing here. We are going to do another round of check and share. I'm going to ask one table to share one thing from each of our 3 questions so that we can move on to the concerns and tensions around without us letting too much of this stuff slip out of our heads, because the wants and needs and how they interact with the concerns and tensions is sort of the key to comprehensive planning as an effort, planning as an effort at all. Like, how do all of these things that we want and need interact with each other? Are there problems and solutions there? So, is there a volunteer for sharing and encouraging change in town, and why that is encouraging to your table?
Just that one question.
Yes.
So So we talked about the library, the fact that there are now signs in Mandarin as well as in English, the changes that have happened in terms of the teen room, and it's really a place where all age groups go. We have a couple of longtime residents, so the emphasis on recycling and on education about recycling and the bike path.
So for encouraging changes, we have the programming at Harry Hall, which is very exciting. Changes in traffic patterns and management, particularly around Pleasant Street and Maple Street. Meetings like this one, of getting individuals together to give input to the town and visions for the town. Net zero, that is very exciting in terms of moving the town towards zero carbon emission in 2030, passed by the selectmen. And getting more town employees like fire and police, because there had been a layoff a few years ago. And so those are some of the main things.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our second question, what's missing in town, things that people want that are not currently present? Again, one table to just share a couple of brief things. Anybody? Things that are missing?
No, you've got, go ahead. Take it right in.
So this is not a consensus for the table, but maybe a majority. That we really feel like there are other towns around here that have more hopping town centers than we would. That's kind of missing from our vision.
If anyone couldn't hear it, I don't know how the microphones work, but the vibrancy of the town center.
Vibrancy of the town center.
Any other quick things on this question before we move on? One more.
Our main focus was that economic diversity is shrinking in Lexington. And we all agreed on that.
I'm sure that will be especially relevant as we move into our next round as well. But before we do, very quickly on unmet needs of others. I mean, this is sort of hinted towards that shrinking economic diversity is something that affects everybody in town.
We really got passionate about this one, which is affordable housing, because our definition of an affordable house in Lexington is around, what, $850,000. So we really need to define it, that's what Pat said, and take seriously the fact that this economic diversity is lacking and getting worse.
Jeff, you've had a hand here.
Please, yeah.
Hello? Yeah.
Great, here we go.
So we had quite a bit of discussion about two things. One of them is that we feel that in many ways our town is not really welcoming to diversity. The schools and the sports teams, in fact, Asian kids to some extent, but the Black and Hispanic kids not so much. And that's a real failing. And then we had a real concern about sidewalks and traffic safety, particularly at this end of town, and particularly around Bedford and Eldred Street.
The lack of sidewalks?
Lack of sidewalks, lack of traffic lights, repeated accidents. Over and over, 2 of my own children have been in accidents at that intersection. Not their fault, but nevertheless.
Thank you all. I mean, so this is, we've already sort of started getting into the meat of what we're going to talk about in the next round, so I'll just launch us into that. But before we do, again, we're going to ask everybody to move, ask one person to say from the host from each table. If this person, I mean, if you didn't move last time, I would encourage you to move this time, unless you're unable or unable to, of course. So I think we lost one person at some point tonight, so if somebody could volunteer to come up here with these lovely, lovely people, we just want to make sure there's nobody who's alone at the front. Perfect, thank you. Thank you all. So welcome to round 3. So we follow a similar model for this one from the last one, just trying to put a different twist on the first question especially. Very quickly running through it. What changes do we see that are occurring in town that are concerning to us? This is especially important as we start thinking about how we prioritize different things. What do we need to change versus what we want to change? And then this, for me personally as a planner, this B question in round 3 is the meat of the thing here. What potential tensions and competing commitments do we see among all of these things that we've talked about? So, yeah, are there things that are in conflict with each other, things that can build on each other, or that, you know, if we do one, we might have to deprioritize another? This is sort of the meat of the question of planning, is how are we going to take all of these various things that we could do as a town and make them all fit into make them all fit into one cohesive whole, one cohesive town, one cohesive plan, one cohesive community. And then the third, this is sort of a catch-all question, just in case the questions that we have asked have not caught something. Hopefully that the conversation will have brought those things out, but we just wanted to make sure we have space tonight for anything that we haven't talked about as a group here and as smaller tables as well. If there's anything that needs our attention that we haven't yet discussed. So those are the 3. We're going to do another 15-minute round just like the others. And it's a lot of conversation to sort of cram in, but you guys have been doing great with it so far. And the first inning is just about starting, so. If the room wants me to give score updates, I will. I'm going to go home and watch it alone. So I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. Again, a scribe at each table, please, to continue that great note-taking. And then we're just going to go for it. 8:15. I'll see you all in 15 minutes. I'll do the tap warning again. Thank you all. So, checking in. It's the bottom of the first. It's still 0-0 as far as I can tell, but my phone is not getting perfect reception here. So.
1 zip.
Oh, somebody scored?
1 zip us.
Thank you. 1-0 Red Sox. I need to get on the Wi-Fi, I guess.
Don't get excited.
So, thank you all. I'm sorry, I've been sick for a while. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. So if I start losing my voice and I'm not speaking loudly enough, just sort of yell at me and I'll clear my throat. So this is the report back for stage 3, the concerns and tensions round. I want to, again, like I said last time, ask people to share 1 or 2 major highlights from each of the questions, so we make sure that we capture a little bit from everything. And then because we're getting towards the end, I'm also going to ask that if there's anybody who has not spoken yet, who wants to, that you do it this round. But for the first one, the first question, what changes concern me and why?
Number 1 from the table.
So the first thing we talked about was traffic concerns at Hancock Street and Bedford Street. Seems that with the new wave of ways, people are now finding shortcuts around and using side streets as now super highways, and maybe better traffic control, better patrolling, and who knows, maybe we'll catch some of the scofflaws. The shrinking business diversity was another concern for change.
Somebody else should move on. Everyone does. Sorry.
Yeah, you just finished the slide. I'm holding by the list. shrinking business diversity
And we're talking about senior housing allocation, maybe not representative of true need.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So, are we doing all three? Okay, so.
First question.
Okay, so we had the same in regards to traffic getting worse. Economic diversity is eroding, and the factors contributing to that are zoning and tear downs, and not enough access to accessory apartments. And for number 2, or B, we also came up with diversity for businesses in the town center, competing priorities with, we have a lot of parking garage space, that could be space for businesses or perhaps housing, and options for, the town should create options to support small businesses.
I ended up with 2 mics here. So both of those actually are great examples of things that I think lead well to this conversation about tensions and concerns. So if you slow down a neighborhood street and discourage cut-through traffic, that might push more traffic out onto a main road, which impacts how the volumes and the safety on that. If you change land uses, parking garages, people find other ways to move around, find other places to park, and how does that influence other land uses around town as well? So thank you both for both of those. The second question, this potential tensions and competing priorities, is there anything that came out of the conversation of those?
There's a tension in the fact that we need housing in the Boston area, we need affordable housing in Lexington, and we all value the open space that we have in the town, and the not in my backyard impulse to keep things the way we understand them and know them, and the difficulty of bringing more business to town when 85% of the town is residential. Those are competing desires.
Great. And then anything that we haven't talked about yet before we get into our final round of how to prioritize from all of these different conversations. Very, very quickly.
Thank you, because I had not thought of. Ignoring East Lexington needs has not been talked about and is a biggie. Sidewalks, we'd love to have more sidewalks in town. All the trees that are cut down, some of them legally, most of them legally, I guess, Peg would know. Attracting new volunteers for the town committees, all of which we have many town committees, but they're kind of aging out. And finally, traffic enforcement, like speeding enforcement and jaywalking.
All right, final move. It's now 8:40. Is it very, very quick? All right. 10 words, all right.
There was a feeling by many of us that there's too much influence of developers in the town economic development, which is the yielding mansionization.
Great. Which actually pairs very well with the committee's comment, right? How do we increase civic participation in the town to make sure that all voices are heard in the process? So, final move of the night is to talk about where we're going from here. So again, one person stay. If you have not moved yet, I would encourage you to move now if you're able to move. And then we're going to do about 10 minutes on priorities and we'll get you out of here.
an open chair. This is one open chair.
Has everyone found a new home?
Trying to read it?
Great, okay. Everyone has at least 3 people at the table, right? Somebody you've got cornered. Great, okay.
We're missing somebody because they went to the restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Is there
Perfect.
an empty spot somewhere?
There's one right up front here.
I just came from that.
Oh, all right. Then right in the back corner, we'll send you as far away from that table as we can get you. All right. So, final round. Given everything that we've discussed so far, what do we think most merits our priorities going forward as a town, specifically in this comprehensive planning process, and then also generally if there are just things that you want to write down in here as well. This is an important point that there's a limited set of sort of tools that the comprehensive plan can employ. It is fundamentally, at the end of the day, a document about land use, and we're trying to make it more than that by having all of these conversations. But there are things that a plan cannot address, but we still want to make sure that we get them down while we're all here and while we're all talking and having these conversations. So don't worry about whether or not something will, translate into land use code when you're writing down what merits priority, like what is important to you and your table going forward. We're going to make this one about just a shy under 10 minutes, and then very briefly come back and report out so we make sure we get everyone out of here before 9 o'clock. One more time, reminder, I think you're used to it now by now, but have a scribe to take notes at the table. And then one of the things, David will speak more to this in a minute, but this is not the end of a conversation. So if you don't get everything down, you don't get everything in, don't worry. We're not going to disappear into a rabbit hole and come back with a plan in a year after tonight. There are more of these meetings, which we hope your neighbors will come to, and you will come to, and we'll be back to talk more. So get everything you can tonight, but if you run out of time, it's all good. We're going to be back and talk more. Thank you. I know I'm probably cutting off conversations, but I wanted to make sure we get out of here on time, that we have a moment to share among ourselves and among each other before we leave. So thank you all. I know it maybe doesn't feel like it, but the time goes very quickly here. You all just did a lot of work, so thank you for doing it. I hope it was productive for everybody. I want to make sure that we have one last check-in with the whole group to hear sort of one priority from everybody. What we did at the last meeting that I thought worked really well, so I'm going to do it again here, is just ask each table to share their number one priority, and do that knowing that everything that you've written down is staying in the conversation. We're going to post all of these on the website. We're going to keep referring back to them throughout the planning process and make sure that everyone's priorities are reflected in the plan, and the conversation that happened tonight is as part of the larger plan that is created. So I know I'm asking you all to censor yourselves and to cut yourselves off, and I know it's a difficult thing, and I appreciate your patience and indulgence in doing that, but just name the number one thing from your table as a group that you think was most important. We'll sort of start in the back and then just make our way up. So.
Our most important priority was, this may not directly translate to planning, but tax breaks, tax exemptions, and affordable services and housing for seniors and others such as municipal workers, and people who work in Lexington.
Thank you.
We had essentially the same thing, economic diversity in housing, especially for seniors and town workers.
We had a lot of different things that we draw under the umbrella of infrastructure.
That's synthesis, folks. Thank you.
The first one on the list was the new high school.
Great.
Yeah, I can go a lot further.
You differ.
We repeated some of what you've spoken about. We also want more sustainable energy in new buildings and incentive to create sustainable improvements in neighborhoods and prepare for places to shelter people in times of extreme weather.
We focused most of our time on the town vibrancy issue and realized that it was an incredibly complicated problem and one that we could talk about.
Yeah.
We said that Lexington Center is no fun. I said that.
Hi, I remember one day was that there should be stronger public policy on housing through zoning.
Hi. So our priority focus was development and affordable housing.
Our priority was thinking about the long-term game for aging in place. That includes looking at our property taxes and seniors' ability to afford it, protecting the environment, and holding planning decisions and permits to environmental impacts, thinking about options for seniors to take in boarders or rent rooms out, providing education on ability to retrofit units, and traffic.
Thank you all very much. That was an efficient download, and I appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to David to wrap everything up, but because I've sort of been staring at it all night and I'm in love with it, and I want you all to notice it before you leave. In the back of the room, a TV has been playing all night with an exercise that some of the students did here called City Collage, and I swear that we didn't plant this, it was just in the room. But just take a minute before you leave to look at it. I mean, this is just what the children of this elementary school think of when they think of a city, and I think it probably has something interesting to say to all of us about what we think of as the town. So that's my wishy-washy thing. But David, please take us home.
Well, thank you again all for attending this evening. As we mentioned earlier, all the insights and feedback we've gotten tonight will be analyzed amongst your staff working with our consultant, the CPAC, and the planning board. We're going to try to identify common themes and goals, as well as conflicts and potential trade-offs associated with achieving those goals. As was mentioned, we'll have a similar event like this on November 27th. It'll be in the community center. It's an opportunity for your fellow residents to have the same experience that you've had. So please encourage them to sign up and attend. After that event, if we decide that there's enough interest in having more of these, we'll be doing them different times of day, different days of the week, and possibly targeting specific audiences, perhaps seniors or even students. With that, lastly, please visit our website. Tell your neighbors, friends to visit the website. Sign up to be notified about future events. Have your friends RSVP for the next World Cafe, and stay tuned. Thank you again, and good night.